Something is happening right now, and if you've felt an unusual shift in your emotions lately, this message may be reaching you at exactly the right moment. There are times in life when changes begin long before we can see any evidence of them in the physical world. They start quietly, beneath the surface, moving through emotions, memories, and unseen connections. You may have noticed moments recently when someone unexpectedly crossed your mind. Perhaps you were busy with your day, focused on work, family, or responsibilities, and then suddenly a memory appeared so vividly that it stopped you in your tracks. Maybe it was their smile, a conversation you once shared, or a feeling you thought you had already left behind. What makes these moments so powerful is not simply the memory itself, but the emotional energy attached to it. Many people assume that when a connection fades from daily life, it fades from the heart as well. Yet real emotional bonds rarely work that way. Some connections leave impressions so deep that they continue to exist beneath the surface, influencing thoughts, emotions, and intuition in ways that are difficult to explain. If you've been wondering whether someone still thinks about you, whether they remember you, or whether the connection meant as much to them as it did to you, there may be more happening than you realize. Sometimes, while one person is questioning the connection, the other person is doing the very same thing. Sometimes both hearts are carrying unanswered questions, even while neither is speaking them aloud. You may have spent weeks, months, or even years trying to understand what happened. You may have replayed conversations in your mind, searching for clues. You may have wondered if there was something you could have done differently. You may have questioned whether the bond was real or whether it was simply something you imagined. These questions are natural when someone has touched your life deeply. Human beings are wired for connection. We seek meaning in our experiences, especially in relationships that awaken strong emotions. When a connection feels significant, the mind naturally revisits it, trying to understand its purpose and its impact. What many people don't realize is that emotional connections often continue evolving, even when two people are apart. Growth does not stop simply because communication stops. Feelings do not disappear simply because circumstances change. In fact, distance often creates the space necessary for deeper reflection. A person who once pushed their emotions aside may eventually be forced to confront them. A person who once took a connection for granted may begin to recognize its value only after experiencing its absence. Life has a way of creating perspective, and perspective can transform everything. Perhaps lately, you've been noticing small coincidences that seem difficult to ignore. Maybe you keep hearing a particular song that reminds you of them. Maybe their name appears unexpectedly in conversations or online. Maybe you have dreams that feel unusually vivid, as though your subconscious is trying to communicate something important. While these experiences do not guarantee a specific outcome, they often capture our attention because they resonate with emotions already present within us. They encourage us to pause and reflect. They remind us that not everything meaningful can be measured or explained through logic alone. There is also something fascinating about the way the heart remembers. Long after details fade, the emotional essence of an experience can remain. You may not remember every conversation, every date, or every moment, but you remember how someone made you feel. You remember the comfort of being understood. You remember the excitement of possibility. You remember the sense of connection that felt different from anything else. These emotional memories are powerful because they become part of our personal story. They shape how we see ourselves, how we understand love, and how we approach future relationships. Right now, there may be a hidden shift unfolding, not necessarily in a dramatic or obvious way, but in the quiet spaces where true change begins. Someone may be reflecting on the past. Someone may be questioning choices they once felt certain about. Someone may be recognizing lessons they could not see before. Emotional growth often happens in private. It happens during sleepless nights, unexpected memories, and moments of honesty when distractions fade away. The most important transformations rarely announce themselves. They develop gradually until one day they become impossible to ignore. If you have felt a pull to watch this message, if you have felt a sense that something meaningful is changing, trust that feeling enough to remain open. Not attached to a specific outcome, not dependent on a particular person's actions, but open to the possibility that life is revealing a deeper layer of understanding. Sometimes the greatest shifts begin with awareness. Awareness leads to clarity. Clarity leads to growth. Growth changes the energy we bring into every aspect of our lives. The connection you are thinking about may be part of that process, a mirror reflecting lessons, emotions, and truths that are ready to be seen more clearly than ever before. Before we talk about what may be happening in your soulmate's heart, it is important to acknowledge what may be happening in yours. So many people carry emotions they rarely speak about because they fear others will not understand. From the outside, life may appear normal. You wake up, go to work, take care of responsibilities, talk with friends and family, and continue moving forward. People may even compliment your strength and resilience. Yet beneath that surface, there can be moments when a quiet ache remains. It is not always overwhelming. Sometimes it appears unexpectedly, like a wave that rises from nowhere. A familiar song begins to play, a certain place triggers a memory, or a random thought pulls you back to someone who once held a significant place in your life. One of the most difficult emotions to describe is the feeling of missing someone while simultaneously trying to heal. Part of you wants to let go of the uncertainty and focus completely on the future. Another part of you still wonders whether the connection carried a deeper meaning. This internal conflict can create emotional exhaustion. Some days you feel hopeful and confident, convinced that everything is unfolding as it should. Other days you find yourself revisiting old questions. You wonder whether they think about you. You wonder whether they ever regret the distance between you. You wonder whether there are things left unsaid. The human heart is complex because it can hold multiple truths at once. You can be healing and still miss someone. You can be growing and still remember them. You can be creating a new chapter in your life while still feeling connected to a chapter that came before. Many people mistakenly believe that healing means never thinking about someone again. In reality, healing often means learning how to remember without becoming trapped. It means allowing memories to exist without letting them control your emotional state. This process takes time, patience, and self-compassion. Imagine a person sitting alone late at night after a long day. Throughout the day, they were productive, focused, and engaged with the world around them. They handled responsibilities and kept themselves busy. Yet as the evening grows quiet, their thoughts begin to slow down. Without distractions, deeper emotions start to surface. They find themselves reflecting on moments they thought they had already processed. They remember conversations, laughter, hopes, and dreams that once felt incredibly real. For a brief moment, it feels as though the past is standing beside them. Many people experience this, yet few talk about it openly because they fear it makes them appear weak or unable to move on. What they often fail to realize is that these experiences are part of being human. Meaningful relationships shape us. They leave emotional fingerprints that become woven into our personal story. When someone touches your heart deeply, their presence influences how you understand love, trust, vulnerability, and connection. Even after the relationship changes, those lessons remain. The memories are not always about wanting to return to the past. Sometimes they are about understanding how much that experience contributed to the person you are becoming. Loneliness can also play a significant role in this emotional landscape. Not the loneliness that comes from being physically alone, but the loneliness that comes from feeling emotionally unseen. You may be surrounded by people who care about you, yet still feel that there is one person who understood a part of you that nobody else fully understood. This feeling can be confusing because it is not necessarily about needing someone to complete you. It is about recognizing the unique emotional space they once occupied in your life. Certain connections create a sense of familiarity and recognition that is difficult to replicate. There may also be disappointment that lingers beneath the surface. Disappointment that circumstances unfolded the way they did. Disappointment that timing was not aligned. Disappointment that things which felt promising did not develop as expected. These emotions can be particularly challenging because they often coexist with hope. A part of you may still believe that something meaningful could happen in the future, while another part tries to protect itself from further pain. This push and pull creates an emotional tension that many people carry quietly. Hope itself is a powerful force. It keeps the heart open to possibility. However, hope becomes healthiest when it is balanced with self-respect and personal growth. True hope does not require you to stop living your life. It does not ask you to place your dreams on hold while waiting for someone else to make a decision. Healthy hope allows you to continue moving forward while remaining open to whatever the future may bring. It understands that your happiness is not dependent on a single outcome. Perhaps the most important thing to understand about your current emotional state is that your feelings deserve acknowledgement rather than judgment. Too often people criticize themselves for caring. They tell themselves they should be over it by now. They compare their healing process to others. They become frustrated when certain memories still carry emotional weight. Yet emotions do not operate according to a strict timetable. Every person heals differently because every connection is unique. The depth of your feelings does not indicate weakness. It indicates that something mattered. It indicates that your heart was open enough to experience genuine connection, genuine vulnerability, and genuine love. One of the most fascinating aspects of life is that some of the biggest changes begin long before there is any visible evidence that they are happening. People often expect transformation to arrive with dramatic announcements, clear signs, or sudden events. Yet the truth is that most meaningful shifts begin quietly, searched in the hidden spaces of the mind, the heart, and the soul. This is especially true when it comes to emotional connections. Before someone reaches out, before they express their feelings, before they acknowledge what has been living inside them, there is usually an internal process unfolding that nobody else can see. Your soulmate may be experiencing such a process right now. While you have been focused on your own healing, growth, and questions, something may be changing within them. Human beings have an incredible ability to suppress emotions when they feel overwhelmed, confused, or afraid. A person can convince themselves that they have moved on simply because it feels easier than facing what they truly feel. They can distract themselves with work, responsibilities, social activities, or even new relationships. On the surface, everything may appear normal, yet emotions that are ignored rarely disappear. More often, they remain beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when they can no longer be avoided. Think about how many people go through life carrying feelings they have never fully expressed. They tell themselves they are fine. They convince themselves that the past no longer matters. They build routines that keep them occupied and productive. But eventually, there comes a moment when life becomes quiet enough for deeper truths to emerge. It may happen late at night when distractions fade. It may happen during a period of personal growth. It may happen after a disappointment that forces them to reflect on what truly matters. Whatever the trigger, the result is often the same. They begin revisiting emotions they once tried to leave behind. This hidden shift is rarely about sudden realization alone. More often, it is a gradual awakening. Imagine a sunrise. The world does not move from darkness to daylight in an instant. There is first a subtle glow on the horizon. Then the sky slowly changes color. Light begins touching places that were previously hidden in shadow. Eventually, what was invisible becomes clear. Emotional awakenings often happen in a similar way. A person may start by remembering a single moment. Then another memory surfaces. Then another. Little by little, they begin seeing the connection through a new lens. What makes this process powerful is that it often occurs without conscious intention. Your soulmate may not wake up one morning and decide to think about you. Instead, something reminds them of you unexpectedly. A place they visit, a song they hear, a conversation they overhear, a dream that feels unusually vivid. These experiences can open emotional doors that have been closed for a long time. Once those doors begin opening, old feelings often return with surprising clarity. Not because the person is living in the past, but because they are finally ready to understand something they could not fully understand before. Personal growth frequently plays a major role in this hidden transformation. As people evolve, they gain new perspectives. Experiences that once seemed insignificant suddenly reveal deeper meaning. Decisions that once felt justified may be reconsidered. Lessons that were overlooked become obvious. The wisdom gained through life experience allows a person to view past relationships with greater maturity and honesty. This is why someone who seemed emotionally distant in the past may eventually become more reflective. Growth changes perception, and perception changes everything. You may have already noticed subtle signs that something is shifting. Perhaps you have been thinking about them more often than usual. Perhaps their name appears unexpectedly in conversations or online. Maybe certain memories keep resurfacing without any clear reason. Maybe you feel an unusual sense of anticipation, as though something is changing even though you cannot explain why. While these experiences should never be interpreted as guarantees, they often accompany periods of emotional transformation. The mind becomes more attentive. The heart becomes more receptive. Awareness increases. Psychologically, this heightened awareness occurs because meaningful emotional experiences create strong associations within the brain. When a connection carries deep significance, reminders of that connection become more noticeable. Spiritually, many people believe that significant relationships remain connected through energetic bonds that continue influencing both individuals, even when they are apart. Whether viewed through a psychological lens, a spiritual lens, or a combination of both, the result is similar. Certain people continue occupying space within our awareness because the connection itself carried importance. The hidden shift may also involve a growing sense of emotional honesty. Many individuals spend years avoiding difficult feelings because vulnerability feels uncomfortable. Admitting that someone still matters can feel risky. Acknowledging regret can feel painful. Recognizing missed opportunities can challenge the stories people tell themselves about the past. Yet emotional growth often requires exactly this kind of honesty. The more a person matures, the harder it becomes to ignore what is true. They begin asking themselves deeper questions. They begin examining their choices. They begin recognizing patterns they previously overlooked. Sometimes this shift happens so gradually that the person experiencing it barely notices at first. Day by day, their perspective changes. Reflection becomes more frequent. Memories become more meaningful. Feelings become harder to dismiss. What once seemed settled no longer feels settled. What once seemed distant begins feeling emotionally present again. Beneath the surface, understanding is expanding. Awareness is deepening, and emotions that have been dormant are slowly finding their voice.
understand why.
Soulmate connection can feel so powerful. It helps to look at it from both a psychological and spiritual perspective. Many people assume these two viewpoints oppose each other, but in reality, they often complement one another. Psychology helps explain what happens inside the mind and emotions, while spirituality explores the deeper meaning and purpose behind those experiences. When combined, they create a fuller picture of why certain connections continue affecting us long after circumstances have changed. From a psychological standpoint, human beings are designed for connection. Relationships are not simply social experiences. They influence the structure of our thoughts, emotions, habits, and even our sense of identity. When you spend significant time with someone, your brain begins creating emotional associations linked to that person. Their voice, presence, habits, and emotional support become integrated into your daily experience. Researchers studying attachment theory have found that close emotional bonds activate systems in the brain associated with safety, comfort, and belonging. This is why separation from someone meaningful can feel so intense. It is not only the loss of a person, but also the disruption of emotional patterns that became familiar and important. Attachment itself is often misunderstood. Many people hear the word and immediately think of dependency, but healthy attachment is actually a natural part of human life. We are wired to form bonds because relationships help us survive, grow, and develop emotionally. The challenge arises when attachment becomes connected to fear rather than trust. When someone fears abandonment, rejection, or loss, they may become overly focused on another person's actions. They begin seeking constant reassurance. Their emotional state rises and falls depending on what the other person does. This creates instability because their sense of worth becomes tied to external validation. This is where self-worth becomes essential. Psychology consistently shows that people with a healthy sense of self-worth tend to navigate relationships differently than those who struggle with self-esteem. They are capable of loving deeply while still maintaining their identity. They do not lose themselves within the connection. They understand that their value exists independently of another person's choices. This perspective creates emotional resilience because it allows love to exist without desperation. It allows connection without attachment becoming controlling or overwhelming. Studies on self-esteem have repeatedly demonstrated that individuals who develop a strong internal sense of value experience healthier relationships overall. They communicate more effectively, establish better boundaries, and recover more successfully from emotional setbacks. This does not mean they avoid pain. Everyone experiences heartbreak, disappointment, and uncertainty. The difference is that they are less likely to interpret those experiences as evidence that they are unworthy. Instead, they view challenges as part of life's journey rather than proof of personal inadequacy. Emotional healing is another important aspect of the psychological perspective. Healing is rarely a straight line. Many people expect progress to happen steadily, with each day feeling better than the last. In reality, healing often moves in cycles. You may feel strong and confident for weeks, only to have an unexpected memory trigger sadness or longing. This does not mean you are moving backward. Neuroscientists explain that emotionally significant memories remain stored within networks of the brain that can be activated by reminders. The memory returns not because you have failed to heal, but because your mind is continuing to integrate the experience into your personal story. Meditation and mindfulness research provide additional insight into this process. Numerous studies have shown that practices involving mindful awareness can reduce emotional reactivity and improve psychological well-being. When individuals learn to observe their thoughts without becoming consumed by them, they develop greater emotional balance. Instead of fighting memories or becoming trapped by them, They learned to acknowledge them with compassion. This ability to remain present creates space for healing and growth. From a spiritual perspective, soulmate connections are often viewed as catalysts for transformation. Rather than existing solely to provide comfort or romance, these relationships are believed to encourage growth, self-discovery, and awakening. Spiritual traditions across cultures suggest that certain people enter our lives because they mirror aspects of ourselves that need attention. They reflect strengths we may not fully recognize and wounds we may not have fully healed. Through the connection, hidden parts of ourselves come into view. This perspective changes how we interpret challenges within relationships. Instead of seeing every difficulty as evidence that something has gone wrong, it invites us to ask what the experience is trying to teach us. Perhaps the connection revealed a need for stronger boundaries. Perhaps it highlighted fears of abandonment that originated long before the relationship itself. Perhaps it encouraged greater authenticity by showing where you had been hiding your true feelings. In this sense, the relationship becomes more than an emotional experience. It becomes a pathway toward greater self-awareness. Authenticity plays a central role in both psychological and spiritual growth. Psychologically, authenticity is linked to higher levels of well-being, life satisfaction, and emotional stability. People who live authentically tend to experience less internal conflict because their actions align with their values. Spiritually, authenticity is often viewed as alignment with the soul's truth. It involves releasing masks, expectations, and roles that no longer serve you. When you become more authentic, you stop seeking approval as intensely because your focus shifts toward living in alignment with who you truly are. Trust is another bridge connecting psychology and spirituality. Psychologically, trust helps create secure relationships and emotional stability. Spiritually, trust involves believing that life continues unfolding even when outcomes remain uncertain. It means accepting that not every answer arrives immediately. It means recognizing that growth often occurs during periods of waiting, reflection, and transformation. Trust allows you to remain open without becoming consumed by anxiety. It creates space for both healing and possibility, while helping you stay grounded in your own worth and inner strength